Hi and welcome to this preview version of how I drew Abby the Cockapoo. So this is showing you a glimpse at part 1 of drawing Abby. So this part is about 3.5 hours long in real time, and I talk through everything that I'm doing. So I'm going to show you a clip of this, and if you would like to see the whole version and if you would like to draw along to Abby with me, then please do head over to my Patreon channel where you will find the full length version along with all of the line art, reference photos, and I talk through this in depth, step by step, exactly what I'm doing along the way. So let's go in and start on Abby. So I've got my Faber-Castell 199 black. Doesn't matter which black you use, just a black. I'm going to start to go around the outline of this eye and just start to get this in. So I'm just getting in my basic shape with a relatively light pressure, just so I can start to figure out what I'm working from. Now in this eye, I can see the browns that are in her eye, but I can also see quite a lot of blue from the reflections. So we'll be doing lots of sort of bluey grey tones. And I'm just at the moment trying to figure out where everything is. So I can see a blue reflection here in her eye. So I'm just going around that to make sure I don't miss it. There is a bit of hair which overlaps here. So I'm just leaving that clear because I don't want to really muddy that up because we'll want a lovely bright colour to go over the top of it. So at the moment I'm just getting in the basic shape that I can see and just trying to leave those bits that want to be a bit brighter and a bit lighter, just leave them as they are for the time being. So I've got quite a sharp pencil and I am going in, as I say, with quite a light pressure at the moment because all I'm doing is just starting to put this outline in. And I don't want the dust to build up, so I've got my air puffer tool, which we've used in the past. And I'm just going to start to get some of these other areas in just so I can see what's really going on. So I've got my 157 blue. It's like a navy sort of dark blue. So again, don't worry if you have a different blue, something similar will be fine. And just start to get this reflection in. Quite often, the thing that makes the eyes come alive is just making sure that you get that lovely reflection and light in. Now there's a white highlight here. It's more yellow in the picture, but I'm going to go in with white to begin with, just so that we keep that sort of brightness and then we can tone it down. This highlight sort of comes out and round. It's not white, it's more bluey grey, but again, it's just to get that brightness in there and then we can tone that down in a minute. So I'm going to go in my chocolate colour just around the edge, just to start to get this brown in. As I say, at the moment, all I'm really doing is just starting to map in the different areas of the eye that I can see, the different colours. And I'm just trying to give myself a base layer just to work from, really. It's just to give me something as a starting point. That's all I'm trying to do at the moment. So I'm picking up my French grey dark. You just want a sort of a warm toned grey, darker grey. And I'm just going to start to get in the sort of the outline around this eye. We'll be toning that down a bit, but I want the darker point to work from so that I can make it start to pop. And then this is the French grey light. Again, light pressure. Just gently smoothing those together. And then back in with the black, I can see the sort of the edge of the eye is a bit more defined now. The more you stare at it, the more you will figure out what's going on, but it will take a few minutes to accustom your eyes. So I can see some blue down here now. So this is the 157 again. As I say, the more you stare at it, the more you will figure out what's going on and what goes where. Quite often when you're drawing portraits, it's like putting a puzzle piece together. You just got to figure out which part goes where. I'm using the black again, and I'm just going around the bit under the eye, the sort of the white of the eye here. Just get that sort of definition in around, and then around the pupil. just in under here as well. You can see these different layers to the eye as it curls up round. And then it's darker as it comes out underneath. Very, very light pressure with the black there just to start to get the idea of that in. And then I can see that there's sort of a darker bit going around the top here because you've got the shadow as the eye curls round. You're starting to get the basic shape of an eye in there. So I'm going to go in with some of my browns, I think, now. So I'm just trying to figure out which one I want to use. It's the 177. I don't think it's quite dark enough, but it can start to get the idea of that colour in. So you just want a deep, dark brown. I'm using just Faber-Castell and Derwent at the moment. But I do have some Stabilos next to me, which I might pick up in a second. So it's really, really quite dark. And I think what I actually want is maybe a bit of purple in there, which is really good for the shadows when you've got brown tones. So a minute ago, I think I said I was going around the pupil. I meant to say I was going around the iris. This is the dark seam purple. So this is what I meant about going in the darker tones. And it actually complements the blue in the eye as well. Quite often when you've got deeper, darker browns, it is quite helpful to go in with a purple tone because it will really, it'll make the colour pop. It'll make it look more interesting as well as darkening it. Just going back in with that 199 black. Very soft pressure. I'm doing small circular movements. And I'm just trying to deepen up this sort of the shadow in the eye. But we want to keep it looking like it's got that sort of browny tone to it. We don't want it to just look black. So just going around where we've got this sort of definition of the edge of the eye. And I think I need to start to go in where this highlight is. So this is the dark seam purple again. And then I'm going to pick up a sort of a bluey grey. This is the Stabilo 724, and just start to go over this highlight just to make it pop a little bit more. It's not as bright as this, but it will help us not to lose it while doing the other bits of this eye. So very, very gentle pressure there. You really don't want to be pressing too hard. And then I'm going to use this over here as well. Gentle pressure, just to softly smooth those together slightly. And I can see a bit of green up here, so I'm going to go in with the 172. This is like a mint sort of pale green. And I'm just using a very, very soft pressure, and I'm just gradually pushing all of these colours together. This is the 175, so this is a deep dark grey. I am changing colours a lot here. Honestly, don't worry if you don't have all of these colours. Just use the colours that you've got that are sort of similar. Some blues, some greys, some purples. I'm going back to the dark blue, the 157. I'm just going over this highlight again because it is not as bright as this. Just to start to get that sort of smoothed in slightly. It's looking quite quite sort of anime at the moment. We don't really want it looking like that. This is the French grey light, so a warm sort of lighter grey. Just starting to smooth this all in and just make it look a bit more natural. And then this sort of a greeny grey tone coming up the eye here. So I'm going to go back in with my sort of mint pale green, the 172. At the moment, I'm just getting these sort of colours in to then go back and sort of fix it later, if that makes sense. This is the French grey dark, just going in around the bottom of the eye. And then I'm going to go over it with the French Grey Light. And I think we'll want some pinky tones in here. So I'm going to pick up the Faber-Castell 189. It's like a sort of mid-tone pink. It's not completely light, but it's not a really dark one either. It is very much a sort of in-between tone. And I've got the pale olive here, which is a very, very light green. It's like a grey green. And I'm just using a light pressure just to smooth those in together. I go back in with my black just to start to redefine this edge. And just start to make sure that we're getting the actual shape right here. Sort of has to curl round. It's always darker at the top of the eye because that's where the least amount of light is coming in. So you are going to have stronger shadows up at the top of the eye. Just starting to go in with the black again up here, just get that sort of deep tone in. And then once we're happy, we can start to go in with the browns over the top to sort of brown it up a bit. This is one of my deeper, darker browns. This is the 177. And I'm just going in to sort of redefine the shape around here, just because the shape is looking wrong, but it's because we haven't finished it yet. But I just want it to look right to my eye as I'm doing it. So I'm just going around the edge of the eye, just to help me see what's happening more than anything else. And as you can see, we are starting to get the right sort of shape in now. And there's a dark sort of shadow down here where the eye curls around. This will just help us see what it's happening in the surroundings that it's in, basically. Because when it's just a floating eye, it is difficult to sort of tell what's happening. And then I can start to go in with my 177 on the actual eye, start to get some of these sort of browner tones in. And I'm using very, very gentle pressure just to sort of blend together with the colours that are already here. Go back in with the 724 with very, very light pressure, using the pencil on its side to do more of a sort of a blend. I don't want to put down a huge amount of pigment. I'm just using it to sort of blend those colours together. And then I'm going to pick up a yellow. I'm going to pick up the 105 just for this highlight, because there is there's a yellow tint to it. So I don't want to lose that. Possibly a reflection of a light. And then there is a bit more of a white highlight over in the corner over here. Not as strong, but it is there. And there's a tiny bit of white going through here too. Not too bright, but it is there. So I'm going to pick up the French Grey Light again, and I'm just blending this in, these colours that you can see sort of going through the eye. Because the eye is basically just different sections of reflections. That's, if you break it down into those different sections of reflections, then you will find it a lot easier to put it in. I'm going to go back to my 157. It's a lot bluer over in this corner. Just make sure that I'm getting this shape correct on this highlight. You can, as long as you're using a light gentle pressure, you can keep going over and adding that pigment and just redefining things and tidying it up. This is the black again over in this corner. And if you do put too much down, then you can brush them off or rub it into the page a bit more. There are ways of saving it. If it's not going quite right, then you can salvage it. And obviously you do need to be using that light pressure to be able to get all of these layers down, because if you're pressing too hard, then the paper won't accept any more layers and you will have to push it into the page or brush some off, which I can show you how to do at some point if you're interested, if you let me know if that's something you would like to see. So I want to go in with like a light brown grey tone. So this is the raw umber. And I'm just going in around this highlight here on the edge. And then I'm going to put a tiny bit into this highlight in here as well. This sort of greeny grey that we've got. And up here too. Very, very light pressure. And then I want to get a deep dark brown again. So I'm going to use the 280. So, yeah, sorry, the 280 just to go in around here. And what this is, it is a very dark brown. It's not as warm as the 177. Still not quite the right mix. I'm going to go back in with the dark scene purple. Just with a light pressure. Just blending all of this in. It's good for the highlight, but it's also good for the darker tones. So just gradually building up these layers, and it's starting to look like it's actually a dog with a reflection in her eye. So I think at this point I will just get a cotton wool bud and just start to blend everything in very slightly, using incredibly light pressure. Can't emphasize how light your pressure needs to be here, otherwise you will lose all the work you've just done. Just blending in this area around the outside, just so that's softer around the eye. And then we can start to re-emphasize some of this. So I'm picking up a light blue. It's like a sky blue. This is the 430. I'm just going in over that highlight to make it pop. And then this area around the white of the eye just needs to be a bit more redefined. So I went over the bright highlight, and then I used quite a lot of pressure for that, and then I've gone out into the other bit in the eye with slightly less pressure. And then I'm going in with my raw umber with my very light brown, again with a light pressure, just blending things in together. And then I do think I need to go back in with the black. With this eye, it is all a bit of experimentation, just trying to put things down and see what's working. It is very much a puzzle piece, just to sort of to build together. As long as you get your lights and your darks right, it will come together beautifully. But I think when you've got an angle like this and you can't see the sort of the defined pupil, it is harder in a way to get everything sort of in the right place when you're just working with highlights, but I think that's looking quite beautiful actually. And it is looking like an eye that is reflecting. So I need to get some grey in down here where the eye curls around and sort of sort out this sort of corner here. And then we've got almost a completed eye. So I'm going to grab my French grey light. Just go in down here in between my sort of black outlines where I'm defining where the bottom of the eye is. And then it's quite blue there in the corner. So I'm going to pick up my sort of navy dark blue, my 157. Just start to get this shape in. Going into it with the black. You may want to sharpen your pencil at this point, just so you get those really defined lines. And I'm going to pick up my grey blue, the 724, just to go in and create some of the separate definitions in there. Use it back in the eye ever so slightly with a light pressure, just to redefine that highlight. And it is a bit darker underneath that eye, so I'm going to use the French grey dark, just with the gentlest pressure, just to go in around underneath, just to darken it slightly. And then within the eye itself, just need to close in on that highlight because it's a bit too large. So I'm just blending that out ever so slightly. And then go back in with the white just to make the bits that I really want to pop. Because it is the white highlight in the eye that really brings this alive. All you're working with is reflections. It's very important to get your lights and your darks in the right place. It's got that sort of crown shape to it. So that looks quite good. I'm going to use the 430 just over here where I have that sort of extra white highlight, just to make sure that's not lost. And I'm going to pick up my sort of grey white. This is the 700. It's not quite white. It's like a very, very light grey. It's a warm tone. And there are similar colours in different ranges, but I just really like this Stabilo one. And I'm going to use this as well with a light pressure where the eye crease is around here, just to blend this in and make sure I've got that sort of definition there. And again with this highlight here, get a bit more brightness in there. And that's looking good. That is looking like we've got the left eye. So I've just sped up this bit of the tutorial here. I'm just talking about our lights and our darks and starting to get in those base layers. So I'm using the Unison soft pastels and I'm just starting to get in the basic shape and the impact of what that light is doing on her fur, just to get our base layers in and get that sort of the shape, the colour and that guide, that map for us to follow, so we know what we're doing when we start to go in with the pencils. So I will show you a little bit of that now. So I'm going to start to go in with some darker tones. So I've got a Stabilo, this is the 635 and it's quite a dark brown. So I'm just going in with a very light pressure and I'm just starting to show where these darker tones are. where this darker hair is. So very, very light pressure. And as I was just saying, with the base layers, you want to be going in the direction in which the hair is going. So I'm starting to create these long sort of swooping hairs that are coming in, and I'm just creating the sort of the shadow of them. And then I'm easing off on my pressure the higher up I get. So I've still got an element of this there, but it's not so obvious because it's going into the brighter colours. And then you can sort of see it a tiny bit in the shadows, these bits that are curling around here. So I'm just starting to get in that sort of shadow tone, because you really do need to have that shadow to work off of to get the really lovely light bits in. So as you can see, it's quite a slow process, but it's quicker than using something like coloured pencils. But I'm not gonna go through the whole process here. If you do want to see it in real time, then please do head over to my Patreon channel. As I say, all of this is in real time, and the bits that I'm cutting to where you can hear me talking, they are taken from the real time audio. So this is me just adding in all of that lovely pencil detail, and I will just cut to the real time audio again, just so you can see me putting in some of the highlights. And as you can see, because we've got the lights and the darks playing off each other, it's starting to really pop already, because you've got these lovely shadows in here. So it's making it look like these are really starting to come out. Just going to go in with the burnt ochre. Just keep this tone down slightly, and to get in where there's a slight bit more of a shadow, because you don't want the colour to be the same the whole way through. Just going in with a bit of a saffron where there's a bit more of a highlight, because obviously the colour is going to change as it flows in the light. A bit more of the 680, just in between where the sort of the shadows are. And again with the 625, just to make sure that we're not losing where this is really sort of popping out. You can go back in between your highlights with your dark. That's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to get it all right straight away. So I'm just going to speed this up again and just show you in a quicker format what we do for the rest of the tutorial. As I say, you can go and watch this for real time on my Patreon channel. There is currently a 7-day free trial, so you can sign up to the 7-day free trial, so you don't even have to pay to watch the real version. So what I'm doing here is I'm working on the middle of the face. The important thing about cockapoos and breeds similar to this, which I talk about a lot in the real-time audio, is that you have to think about what the viewer is seeing. So what is furthest away and what is closest to the viewer. So you need to get those bits in that are furthest back first and the bits that are closer to the viewer at the end. So as tempting as it might be to go in with all of those lovely stunning highlights to begin with, you need to get your foundation layer down before you can start to put those other layers on top. So you need to get the bit that's furthest away in first and then gradually work towards the front. And that's something that's really important about this tutorial. Now I ended part 1 before doing the second eye, the eye that you see on the right, her left eye, simply because we ran out of time. I like to keep these tutorial parts around 3 hours, so it's manageable, so you can fit it into your week and do it around doing other things and just learn at an easier pace rather than having to digest sort of 10 hours all at once. So this did finish here, and that was at about 3.5 hours long, and we picked it up in part 2 where we started off with the eye. I think that's probably a good place to just finish this bit off, and it's a great place to start part 2. We'll come in and we'll finish doing all of this lovely hair here so we can get the bits in the eye done, bits around the eye done, and that'll be a really lovely place to start part 2. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I will see you in part 2 where we will carry on. We'll get this eye done. We'll finish off this area around here and then we'll start to work down the face. So see you in part 2, guys. Bye.